Your lack of patience is preventing you from so much joy. You want everything right now. Now you get discouraged. And you know what? So much of that is rooted in ego and patience. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because the more impatient you are, the less you're ever going to meet your goals. So let's get it together. Let's talk about our ego a little bit, and let's get patient. Check it out. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori, and man, am I excited that you are here. My birthday has passed. It was a great birthday. I celebrated it for about 4 days. It wasn't even a milestone birthday, but it was a great birthday, and so many of you reached out. I appreciate you guys. And now we are back, and I cannot wait for you to do the worksheet over on Patreon today, or whenever you are listening to this. So at Patreon, in case you're new here, Patreon is the paid podcast that kind of goes along with this one, and it gives you a worksheet. So we go through the worksheet so you can understand it and dig deeper, because you can have all of the knowledge, but if you don't know where to start, then that can be a problem. So you can jump over to Patreon if that's your jam, patreon.com/the positivity experience. But let's talk about patience, because goodness, I've experienced it, you've experienced it, and I will tell you right now, I see this in my practice on a daily basis. Everybody wants it right now. Everybody wants to feel better right now. Everybody wants to lose the 20 pounds right now. Everybody wants things right now. And I'm going to tell you right now, the more that you do that, the less that you're ever going to not only not meet your goals, you're going to have a hard time in relationships. You're going to have a hard time on your healing journey. Because at least from the healing perspective, you can go through that all day, every day. Okay. And you can say, I have the podcasts, I have the worksheets, I have the therapies, I have the meditations, I'm doing the things, I'm dotting the I's, I'm crossing the T's, but I'm still just not feeling better. Yeah, because you got to have consistency and you got to be patient on this journey. So as far as a healing part of your journey, that's going to be lifelong. So you're just going to have to wrap your head around that. There's no scenario where you do 3 months of therapy and you're better. That's just not a thing. Okay. There's no amount of meditations. There's no amount of diets. Nothing is supposed to be a fast fix. And the problem is that you get discouraged and sometimes your goals are too big, right? And we've talked about that a lot in, smart goaling, creating a space for yourself. So you understand that you got to do micro goals, right? You don't need all of the tools like, okay, cool. So I know how to meditate now. No, you've been meditating for like a week. Don't tell me you know how to meditate. Oh, you've been meditating for 6 months? Okay. I mean, you're starting to get the foundations, but you don't really know the consistency of meditation. So a lot of times before you go to the next step, you must know the steps in which you're practicing right now, and you have to be consistent, and they have to be baby steps. That's where your ego comes in. And boy, oh boy, I could do from now to the end of the year, a video every single week just on your ego. I am an ego specialist. It is something that, it's very Freud. It's very Sigmund Freud. It's something that you learn a lot of. And then when you understand it, you can actually work with it. Okay. So let's go through it. We're going to go through multiple ones of these today. Okay. And remember that your ego-driven impatience comes from so much, right? And ego in general is part of life. Right? That's part of your life. My cat, side note, if you're watching this on YouTube, my cat is behind the screen of the camera, and he's batting it around because nobody likes when I get on the podcast. It's like all of the cats come out and they're like, hey, I have no patience until you're done. So these cats could take a little lesson from this podcast. But so the ego-driven impatience in which you are going to struggle with is the fact that things are largely out of your control. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter what your timing is. That's an acceptance. So we're going to go through a few reasons from your ego. Number one is resistance to change. Your ego does not like change unless the ego is the one making the change, right? So think of it as like breaking up in a relationship, right? If you're the breaker-upper, you might still feel some kind of way, but you know what? You're probably going to move on faster than if you're the breaker-uppy. So when you are resistant to change, you have to understand ego takes this personal. Ego says, oh, well, if we're not friends anymore, I'm taking this personal. Ego says, oh, well, we got to change this. Why? Like, I'm not comfortable here. Now you make it about you. Okay, this isn't so much about resistance to change, but ego says, well, but I like this person. I want them to like me back. Yeah, that's your ego. And quite frankly, they don't have to. And so going back to the resistance of change is when you're taking it personal, when you are resisting that shift. A lot of that is your ego because it's going to go into control, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And you have to understand in change, it takes away that perception of superiority. Right? There's a level of superiority that comes with your ego, especially during patience, right? Because if you refuse to acknowledge your shortcomings, you're going to think that you should get things faster. Well, listen, I already know what I need to do. This is what needs to happen. Why isn't it happening fast enough? Well, because you may not have the tools to get there right now. Remember, you're supposed to be learning for the rest of your life. You guys know my motto. Unless I'm doing a speaking engagement or something where I'm supposed to have the knowledge, I want to be the least knowledgeable in the entire room. I want to walk in and feel a little inferior, like a little bit like, oh my God, not intimidated, but like, oh my God, I can sit there and I can get all of this knowledge, but my ego is in check. See, when your ego is impatient, it wants everyone to validate you then. It wants people to see your perspective right then. So patience isn't just about getting the outcome right away. Ego and impatience is also like, well, why can't they see this? Believe it or not, that's very impatient, right? It takes time. You know, if somebody goes, well, but I apologized. Well, okay. Well, maybe it takes that person 2 years, 10 years, 16 years to they can forgive you instantly, but before they let you back into their sort of space of trust. It's not on your time. So if you're like, well, I said sorry and I'm making a change. It's been 6 months. It's been a year. Calm down. That doesn't mean that the person hasn't forgiven you. It's just that you want it done faster. And the resistance to change is like, well, damn, that relationship changed. Well, yes, it did. So your resistance to change is heavily rooted in ego. Now, of course, you can have attachment, you can have insecurities, you can have depression, anxiety, neurodivergence. I understand, but remember, those are reasons, not excuses. Regardless of what it is, your ego is still resistant to change. And until you embrace that change, and the lack of control, you are going to remain in a spin cycle. Okay, you are. And there's imperfections that you have, that I have, that everybody does. There's a level of, let's say, limitations. We all have certain limitations. You know, so when people say you can be anything you want to be, that's fake. No, you can't. You cannot be anything that you want to be. But if you focus on something that you know is within your capability of learning, physical, mental capability, it's going to be scary at first. So you gotta really kind of push in. But I can't just go get involved with the WNBA right now. No, I can't. Even if I wanted to, I can't. And so it doesn't mean that you're less than. It's just that there's a reluctance to accept it. In turn, you're always going to feel impatient. Well, I don't understand why I can't just get there, because now suddenly you feel superior. You want people to see it. But if you have no humility, if you have no self-awareness, and if you cannot release attachments, you will always feel like you need the relationship right now. You need the outcome right now. You need the answers right now. You need to know what is going to happen right now. And while, yes, there's other mental things that come along with that, that is not all that it is. There is a lack of patience. Now, another part of that is a sense of entitlement. Ego-driven impatience comes from a sense of entitlement. The desire for immediate results is always rooted in ego. Always. And there's a level of entitlement there. Well, I deserve this. I had a crappy childhood. Okay. And why does everybody have to give you stuff right away because of this? That's your ego. I deserve. Calm down with that. I know you've heard this 80 million times from 80 different people, and I'm one of them, is no one's coming to save you. And that is a very true statement. No one is coming to save you. And to expect that, because that goes into unmet expectations, because a sense of entitlement is also unmet expectations. So if you're like, well, my expectations aren't being met, check your ego. Because people don't have to do as you do. They do not. They don't have to do things because you want them to do it. Entitlement. It's because you become impatient. You're very impatient with it because you're like, I want this right now. Well, I want it. Well, why can't they see it that way? Well, this is what I would do. Come on, get along with it. Entitlement. And you may say, oh, I didn't think I was entitled. Well, if you are operating on unmet expectations in which you've set, then yeah, that's ego. If you're operating from a space of immediate results, I need to lose the 20 pounds fast. I've been to the gym 3 times. I'm not seeing a progress. Okay, well, that's also your ego. Because this is where, it's not the only place. Impatience comes from lack of self-esteem. It comes from the need of validation, which we're going to talk about because all of those things still roll into your ego. And here's something that you got to get clear on. It does not matter. And it's going to be hard for you to get that. Seriously, if you have a hard time getting this, book a session with me immediately. All of my stuff's always on the show notes because you avoiding accepting things as they are doesn't mean that they don't exist. So if you're like, well, I don't like that. Well, so what? And what you've got to get clear with is that people have their own path. People have their own journey. People have the way that they do things their own way. Now, let's be honest, you don't have to deal with it. If you're like, hey man, like this person is just, like it's too far out there for me. I'm like, that's fine, distance. But if you're looking for these unmet expectations and you want this person to change and you want them to change right now, that's also impatience. And that's a sense of entitlement. And entitlement comes from ego. Right? So you're going to start seeing how these all sort of overlap because it's not just about people. It's about jobs. It's about things like that. Number 3 is a desire of control. Control, 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 control. And I'm going to break this down for you. And again, you don't have to like it. You don't have to love it. And you might say, I don't want to accept it. But until you accept it, you're going to stay in a spin cycle and you're going to stay stuck. You have zero control over 98% of your life, 95, 98% of your life. Zero. I wish that things would have been different. Well, they weren't. Well, I wish that things would have been different. Well, too bad. You can wish it all day long. Well, I wish I'd have made better decisions. Well, you didn't accept it. You learn from it and you move on from there. Okay. So if you're like, well, but I wish I could have done different. Okay. Well, then do different now. But why am I not getting this knowledge? I feel like I should know this already. Yeah. Okay. But you know what? It's taken you how long to be this way? It's going to take you how long to get out of that space, to change things. Well, it's going to take a while. Okay. It's seriously going to take a while for you because until you can accept it and you're like, well, I refuse to accept it. Well, then you know what? Stay stuck. Be impatient. Be entitled. Ego seeks to control situations, period. That is your ego. And when you can't control it, you get impatient. You really do. You get impatient. And so ego says, well, I need to control the outcomes. And things need to go as planned. I have a plan, and this is plan A, and it better go as planned, because if not, I'm going to come unglued. Ego. Because let me tell you, things are curveballs. You can plan your day, you can micro goal it, you can smart goal it, will be flexible because the universe is not on your time. Just because you have it doesn't mean it's going to go as planned. And think outside of the box. Don't just read a sentence and then take it verbatim because you go, I don't like change. I can't control it. If I read this, I can control what I'm reading and what I understand and how I implement it. Yeah, but there's way many other factors. So if you need to control a person, a scenario, even with yourself, I want to control eating better so I can lose weight, which you already know is you never go to the gym or eat better to lose weight. That's a byproduct, total separate topic. But that's the thing, is that you want these fast fixes and you're getting married to the idea that if you have that, you will feel happy. And that is not true. You do not know that. You could, you also could not. Because if you keep looking externally to control things, to understand what's going to happen, to not worry about the unknown, then you will be a prisoner to that for the rest of your life. If you're like, well, I know how to do this accounting job. Like I'm really good at accounting. I know my job. And then that job gets taken away from you and you go, holy hell, what am I supposed to do now? Right. Because you started to say, I'm going to be able to do this for the rest of my life. And the reality is you don't know that. Well, if things would have been different growing up, it would have been better. You do not know that. Ego wants you to believe that. Well, if I can't control the outcome, if I can't control the situation to this, then, oh my God, I'm going to spiral out of control. But once again, remember that not everybody is on your time. And you cannot control things except for your mindset. It's how you see things. It's the mindset that you have about your life. Not everybody has a happy-go-lucky life. But how do you see it? Are you going to see yourself as a victim? Are you going to say, oh my God, I'm so behind. Oh my God, why can't I do this? Oh my God. Or are you going to look and go, okay, what can I do? What strategies can I do right now to accept it? And that's a big piece. So your desire for control is keeping you impatient, and it's keeping you directly in your ego. Okay, what are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4. So number 4 to that is fear of failure. This goes into your perfectionism. If you are not accepting of failing, you will never grow. There is, and I've told you this a million times, I'll tell you a million more. There's no successful person that has never not failed multiple times. Not once, multiple times. So your fear of failure or loss of status, because sometimes that ego goes into inflation about status. So you get impatient. You're like, okay, well, I better get all this knowledge right now. I need this right now because I don't want people to think that I'm dumb. I don't want people to think I'm stupid. I don't want people to think I'm inadequate because then I'm going to lose my status. I'm afraid. What if somebody goes, oh, well, you don't know what you're doing because you failed at it. No, that's how you know what you're doing. Because how the hell else are you supposed to learn? What do you think you're supposed to just have the shiny hammer and hang it on the wall and never use it, never get it dented, never get it dinged, never throw it across the garage because you're upset with something? I mean, no, those are all things that are going to happen. But your impatience is driven by needing to get better right now, by needing to get through the depression right now, by needing to let go of situations right now. If you are not married, and I mean hardcore married, to the process, to the journey, you will never get to a space, and I mean never get to a space in your life where you feel comfortable. Things are out of your control. So people say, well, and people have asked me, well, how are you so patient? It was funny because my son said on a TikTok live just recently, he said, my God, Mom, you went from being the most impatient person I know to literally one of the most patient people I know. Because first of all, I practice Buddhism, I practice mindfulness. We all know this. And when you get confident and when you practice that, you're like, okay, well, I mean, I got to roll with it because it's out of my control. And then if it doesn't work or it doesn't come to fruition, how do I want to see that? So there's an acceptance, there's a humility, there is a release of control, which is ego. Anytime you want to control something, that is your ego. Anytime you want someone to see it differently, that is your ego. And that will be impatient because you will want the world to see you in a different light than what's being told. Impatience. And until you can let go of control and needing people to see your side of the story and defending yourself and letting people want those things right now, then you are going to remain stuck and you will remain impatient. Going back to what I said, the world owes you nothing. The world owes you nothing. And it just because you're sad or just because you're going through something doesn't mean that the world goes on pause to help you feel better. I mean, that's a harsh reality that you're going to have to accept. Yeah, I mean, you got to accept that. Everybody in this world, myself, you, everybody in this world's going through something. We're all dealing with something or some things. It doesn't mean that people can't be empathetic. It's just be careful of trying to control that narrative, trying to get somebody to change, trying to drag them along, trying to have them see their purpose. All of that is still impatience. Comparison and competition. Oh my God, this is a big one. If you are constantly comparing yourself and you feel the need that you have to get through college in 2 years versus 4 years, well, you're going to set yourself up for burnout and failure. And failure is good, but are you going to learn from it or are you going to wallow in it? So when you're sitting there and you're in comparison, ego thrives on comparison, thrives on it. And impatience, like I was saying to you before, comes from external benchmarks. Okay, so if you have external benchmarks, I need this by this time. Great, because it's a goal. But if you marry to it and you go, oh my God, wait, I'm behind. Oh my God, I'm not going to get this. Why can't I just get this? I need to get this right now. Oh, I can't meet that May 1st deadline. Okay, so then maybe we have to bump that deadline out and then you have to reassess. and you have to pump your brakes and you have to say, well, maybe I didn't micro goal enough. Maybe I need to micro goal the micro goal. It's a reassessment and not saying, well, I need it by May 1st. I need it by May 1st. I need it by May 1st. And why is it not happening? Because then you will set yourself up to be frustrated, to be angry, all of those things because you are impatient and you want it right now. You want to reach those benchmarks right now, which again goes into that control, right? Because then you're in competition because you're like, well, but Tammy got it. Tammy understands it right away. So what? That's Tammy. Why are we worried about Tammy? Now you're in her backyard. Stay on your yard. You're in her backyard and you're like, well, but Tammy started this business before me and I've been in this business for 2 years and I'm still not making a profit and she's been in it for 6 months and she's making all kinds of money. So what? So what? Well, why am I? I need to make money right now. Okay, calm down. Because the moment you start a business, you might as well just chalk that up to knowing you're not really going to turn a profit, like an immediate, consistent profit for a few years. So you might as well just saddle up. Are there those one-offs? Are those the people who like kind of strike gold overnight? Sure. Those are like your 1% to 2% of the population in the entire world. Don't compare yourself to this. Because ego says, I got to know this now. I have to heal now. And I've had people, clients, friends that go, man, you really are balanced and you're comfortable with growth and yeah, that shit wasn't overnight. What do you think? I just woke up and I was like, you know what? I think I want to be better. Bam. And I work on it every day and I will work on it every day for the rest of my natural born life. But I've done the stuff. I've done the work. I've allowed myself to distance. I've allowed myself to release control. I've allowed myself to not know so I can learn. But that's what I'm saying. You know, you look at the person with the big house. You look at the person with the 2.5 kids and the family, if that's what you want, and you go, I need that now. Well, you have no idea the work in which they've done to get there. You're seeing the glory, but you're not seeing the story. And so you're competing with it. And that's why you get impatient. Well, I need to know these things. Why? Why do you need to know these things? There's not a scenario where you need to know those things. Now, you can need them to move forward in it. But the reality with that is you can't be in a space to where you got to constantly be in competition, because you'll always feel like you're behind. You'll always feel rushed and you'll never be patient. You'll never be like, it's okay that this is my journey. Because here you are looking at, like I said, their yard, or you're on their street and you're going down at their speed of 55 and you might need to go 5 miles an hour. You might need to stop and pause and not even get in the car yet. Your insecurities, your ego goes, but I'm just as good. I need to do this. Yeah, but you also need to do the work to get there. I mean, sorry, but I'm not sorry because that's a fact. You also have to understand that you have limitations. We all have limitations. If it is difficult for you to accept these limitations, you will never grow. Because you're going to feel as though you're superior, you're going to feel entitled, you're going to feel in competition, you're going to feel all those things. Because ego is resistance in acknowledging these limitations, imperfections, and impatience comes from that, right? So impatience comes from, well, I don't want to accept that. Impatience comes from, I don't like that setback. Why? Why did that setback happen? Now I'm way behind. Oh my God, I'll never meet my goals and I need to meet them today. That's all based in ego. Okay. And there's going to be barriers. There's going to be challenges. Okay. So what? You don't get it overnight. Okay. So don't you want to get it and be consistent? That's why, and I always go back to diet just because, and I hate diet. I hate the word diets, but I always go back there just because like years ago I was a personal trainer. So I always use this as a thing. People want to lose the 10 pounds that they want to lose this month. No, adequate, good weight loss is 1 to 2 pounds a week. So if you got 50 pounds to lose, stop trying to do it by summer. Oh, I need to get to, You're going to set yourself up for severe depression, anger, upset, self-loathing. I'm not good. I suck. Why can't I stay committed? Why am I? Because you're biting off way more than you can chew. And there's challenges. There are setbacks. You cannot have comebacks without setbacks. That's just how life works. So we all have a limitation. And so it sounds silly. And I'll tell you about, I'm all about these 5 journals. If you want to know about the 5 journals, go to my YouTube, same name, The Positivity Experience. Go under playlist, the 5 journal series. I know that if I'm upstairs and I have 13 steps in my house, it's an OCD thing. So if I'm upstairs in my bedroom and something comes in my head that I feel like, oh man, I'm getting a little negative, I better dump it in my negative journal, and it's downstairs, I know that my inner brat's going to be like, girl, you don't need to go downstairs. It's fine. Calm down. You don't need to. So I have a set upstairs. My limitation is often my OCD, my ADHD, even my anxiety. So I work with it. What are my challenges and how can I dive into those challenges? How can I work with those challenges? That's the big thing, is you have to accept that you have imperfections and that you have things that, you might not get it as fast as somebody else. You might not reach that goal as fast as somebody else. And that's okay. You don't have to. Ego also resists delayed gratification. This is huge for impatience. I need it right now. Well, I know what to tell you, because you're not always going to get things right now. And sometimes those things that you get right now, might not be great for you. And if you can't tolerate delayed gratification and you're prioritizing immediate satisfactions, it's going to be a big issue. If you can't delay gratifications, you will not, and I mean will not, meet these goals in your life. Period. But I want it right now. Don't care. What's the process to get there? Oh, God, I know, but I've been doing it for a couple of weeks, or I've been doing it for a couple of months. Why do I feel like I'm not going anywhere? Stop it. Stop it. Because like I said, I see it in my practice. People are like, okay, cool. Like I was doing that last week. So what else are we going to learn today? Nothing. We're not learning anything else today because we're focusing here. Yeah, but I just want to feel better. Nope. No. So if you can't accept that things might take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, where you want them done in a year and you want those instant gratifications, you're going to get in bad relationships. You're going to end relationships impulsively. None of that is going to work for you because the goals are always going to be too big and it's going to be too hard to get there because you want immediate results. Okay, now remember when I said low self-esteem? Goodness gracious. Ego lives in low self-esteem. Okay, if you have insecurities, if you have a fragile self-esteem, if you are defensive, okay, if you are impatient and then suddenly you go into I am worthless versus I have good God, worthiness. Don't follow me for English tips. Then it's going to be a problem. If you're defensive, it's because you want somebody that moment to see it from your perspective. That moment for them to think that you're smart. That moment for them to boost that. A fragile self-esteem is very defensive. Oh, they think I'm dumb. Based on what facts? Because they're giving you constructive criticism? That doesn't mean that they think that you're stupid. It means that we all need to grow and we all need to be checked. I need to be checked. We all need to be checked. So we can say, oh my God, okay, that's not working. Damn, I really wanted it to work that way. Okay, well, but it's not. So it goes into that ego that says, well, but it has to be my way. Do you know how many times I've changed the format of my business? Multiple times. Do you know how many times I've changed the format just of this podcast? At least twice. How many times I've changed my posting schedule on YouTube? Multiple times. How many times I've reset doing my book? The reason it's taking so long is because I keep resetting it because I have so much to say. So instead, I've said, you know what? It all doesn't need to go in one book because it's going to be about 5,000 pages and nobody's going to want to do it. So I had to streamline it. I had to reset it. Okay, I wanted the shit out 2 years ago. It's not. It'll come out when it comes out, and I have a different goal, and it's my goal to achieve, and it's my time to say, okay, check yourself. You can't put this all in one book because it's going to be way too drone on. It's going to go on and on and on. Nobody's going to like it. And I don't care about nobody liking it, so that's not preventing it for me, but it's like I want to give you the maximum bang that's going to help you, and I just have so many things to give you. So I've had to check myself. I've had to talk to other literary people. I've written a book, but I mean, that was like 7, 8 years ago. I've talked to other literary people. We've discussed things and they've had to break it down for me. And they go, okay, we need to baby step it. We need to micro goal it. You need to get very clear on what the direction is you want for your book. And I have like 10 things on there and they're like, yeah, that's not going to work. I'm like, I want it to work. They're like, yeah, don't care. I'm like, okay. And they're like, which one's more important? And I'm like, this one, and this one. They're like, no, which one's more important? And so it forces you to think. And these people know what the hell they're talking about. I follow Stephen King and he has this book that I downloaded, this Audible book that's like Stephen King on writing. And he talks about it. And he talks about how long it takes and how many times he's reset a book and how many times one book that he wanted out in 1 year took 4 years to come out. So you have to understand that your self-esteem cannot be put upon an external factor. I'm worthy when these people love me. I'm worthy when I lose the 10 pounds. I'm worthy. Why do we need other things to be worthy? Impatience. So you have to check your ego. Because let me tell you right now, that's your id. There's 3 parts of your ego: the id, the super ego, and the ego. That ain't your super ego. And it isn't your ego. So the ego in the middle kind of balances the two. It's like, okay, let's play nice. Let's be the mediator. I see what you want and I see what your morals are. Calm down. Let's come together and let's mediate this. Your id is like, nope, I need it right now. That's your animalistic. That's your lizard brain. That's your critter brain, whatever you want to call it. It's the thing that drives sex. It drives instant rewards. It drives me, I need this now. And so when that gets loud, it takes center stage, all of these things back here can't. But you got to be willing to take that step back. You got to be willing to know that not everybody's going to like you. You got to be willing to know that your time frame, my time frame's 2 totally different things. You got to be willing to know that people may never see your side of the story. You may never lose the 10 pounds in the 2 weeks, but you can lose it over a 6-month period of time. I don't want to, don't care. The I don't want to, the inner brat, I'm not going to. Somebody told me to do it. I don't want to do it. Nope. Ego. And when you can understand it and walk with it and let that go, then and only then will you be able to get into a space to where you're patient. That's right. I want my son moved into his apartment. I want my daughter in college right now. It's 4 months away. I want her moved in and ready to go today. It is not possible and I might as well accept it. I want my book out today. Not going to happen. I want to be a little bit firmer. Not going to happen. I want to open my pool today. Not happening today because I got to plan it out. Yeah, but I don't always want to do the 5 journals. Don't care. Does my tomorrow self deserve that? Does your tomorrow self deserve that? And when you answer that question, you're able to accept that, well, like it or not, you got to be patient.